One of the oldest and most classic big, literally, pieces of culture out of Japan are kaiju and sentai. Kaiju being monsters and the sentai being the cool squadrons of justice to fight these things. Some of the most iconic pieces of media, even Western, have heavy kaiju and sentai influence, Godzilla being the most famous kaiju and Power Rangers being the most famous sentai. However, there's a new contender. Kaiju number 8. And let me just say that it is massive. Big enough for a second season coming out soon and a Fortnite skin even. And due to the proximity of the second season, I would like to take the time to talk about it, appreciate it, and point out its flaws. Kaiju number 8 is a simple story. Kafka, a 32-year-old guy well past his prime, always dreamt of being in the kaiju fighting task force. However, reality strikes him, and it strikes him hard when he instead gets stuck cleaning dead kaijus and their shits. Literally. In every kaiju movie, we see the kaiju defeated, but we never really see the aftermath. What do they do with the bodies? What about all the destruction? This show takes that into consideration. One day abruptly, a kaiju enters his body orally and turns him into an ultra-powerful kaiju man. His humanity remains and he can still think soundly, but he now has the strength of a kaiju. This is the story of Kafka joining the task force with his newfound powers and proving to himself that he will always be in his prime. I will say that from here, the rest of the story is pretty predictable. He joins the force, trains, fights kaijus, loses his humanity later on, fights a man kaiju, not a kaiju man, some shit happens during the test. This show is nothing innovative. It is very influenced by many things prior. The beginning takes on a pretty typical shonen approach. The part where the kaiju man fights a man kaiju is a pretty typical mirror matchup. Him losing his humanity and having to use his mental strength to fight it is also pretty typical. We see it in Naruto, Dragon Ball, Bleach, Black Clover, Demon Slayer. It's nothing new. But this isn't a criticism necessarily, and is instead a simple observation. Because this show, though not special, does what it does really well. It has a strong identity, both visually and narratively. It knows what it is, and it rolls with it. And within that are also some very good writing decisions. Kafka, the main character for example, is great. I would say he is one of the best representations of a regular dude in anime. Anime and manga, when doing the just a regular guy trope, usually biffs it hard. They confuse making a character normal with giving him no character, and sometimes, like in the case of Rent a Girlfriend, actively insults the audience by saying that the average guy is a horny loser. But here, Kafka isn't a loser. He may be a bit burnt out, but he's a normal, relatable dude. Within the first episode, they do very subtle things to show this, and it has some really good characterization out the gate. He works, comes home, drinks, smokes, really normal things to do. They don't glorify him, make him super cool. He has a dad bod, has a messy room, he wears helmets when riding a scooter, he uses nose plugs when he does particularly stinky jobs, he does things that aren't glamorous. Again, he's a normal ass dude, but he also has a very clear personality. He is caring, somewhat reserved, he has dreams but is grounded, he is a jolly guy but has internal struggles. This is a really good character, and that extends to his buddy Ichikawa as well. I will say though, Ichikawa did have a pretty weak introduction. They introduce him as a Sasuke-esque cool dickhead character, but they drop it within 5 minutes and he too becomes a regular likable dude. The world building is also neat. They do everything that I said you should do for solo leveling. They have new interesting jobs, there are real world permanent changes due to the big change. There are more grounded things like workers' comp for when you get hurt on the job, and there's neat gear like heat chainsaws for when you are cutting fat specifically on a kaiju. Kaijus have guts and intestines and also shit. There are evacuation bunkers everywhere, citizens complain about the sirens for kaijus being too loud and annoying, and then there's more absurd shit like nipple pissing. Just some silly little quirks for a silly little kaiju. And due to these small things, I think this is a way better show than Solo Leveling. I'll say it. Solo Leveling did not deserve Anime of the Year. This show wouldn't even deserve it. I compare these two shows because honestly speaking, they're very similar in nature. Once weak guy suddenly gets power and becomes strong guy. In essence, they're very similar. However, Kaiju number 8 does things Solo Leveling doesn't. It gives the main character a likable personality while still being quote unquote normal. It builds the world with interesting jobs like cleaning kaiju shit. I genuinely would watch a whole slice of life show on the workers just doing their work, showing how things are in this made up job in a very matter of fact but entertaining way. We can see different parts of cleaning, we can see little life hacks the workers use, which corporate doesn't teach, but the workers just do to make things a little easier. And by the way, pro tip, if you ever find a way to do work easier or better in a job, keep it to yourself. In the corporate world, good, efficient workers are punished with more work. Back to the topic, this would actually be a sick show. Neither Kaiju No. 8 nor Solo Leveling are deep and profound, which is fine. Kaiju No. 8 is also just brain-dead fun, but even the parts that are brain-dead fun, like Kafka absolutely clipping big bad kaijus, are made better. See, fight scenes require a couple of things. One of them is good animation, which Solo Leveling and Kaiju No. 8 excel at. It must have good choreography too. There must be different, interesting, and unique things happening in the fight. A rule of thumb is to not use the same move twice. Imagine a fight scene where a guy punches a guy in the face, then again, then again. Shit's boring. Sort of off topic as this is not an anime, but I recently watched a K-drama called Yakan Young or Weak Hero. It was pretty good, I guess, but the last fight between Nabaekjin and Baku were very disappointing. Baku punches him in the face, then Baekjin punches back in the face, to which Baku punches him again, and Baekjin retaliates with a punch of his own, and this goes back and forth until one of them drop. It was really shitty, which is weird because this show has really good choreography for the most part. Just during the climax of the show and in the most important fight do they drop the ball a bit. However, the single most important thing a fight must have in a show is meaning. Something must change due to the fight. We must care, but we as the audience would only care if the characters participating in the fight are good. That's ironically also why a fight with such bad choreography in Weak Hero had so much impact, because we care about the characters. A fight must have characterization, it must have soul. The other things are just cherries on top, so since I never cared about any of the characters in Solo Leveling, none of the sick fights meant anything. However, in Kaiju No. 8, I cared about Kafka, so the fights mattered more, and were therefore better. But you know what matters to me the most? Money and bitches. Hell yes. I'm just kidding. Though it would mean the world to me if you subscribed, so make my day and I'll try to make yours with even more content. Another thing that I want to talk about is the influence it takes, as I think it's really interesting. The most obvious and primary one is the Metamorphosis, and who famously wrote that piece? Franz Kafka. There is a really famous image of a bug laying in bed, just like how Kafka, the guy from Fortnite, was sitting in bed during the time he changed. Something Kafka, the author, likes to do in his stories is to write in a normal world with one small twist. In the Metamorphosis, it's a normal world, but the main character, Gregor Samsa, turns into a bug. And it goes unexplained because honestly, who cares why it happens? What Kafka likes to focus on is not the why, but how people respond to the thing. Just like in Kaiju No. 8, where the transformation and why it happens and the whole existence of kaijus go unexplained. Because it honestly doesn't matter. It already happens, they exist. What is far more interesting is how the people living in that world react. So yes, this story is very Kafka-esque. This overall isn't that big of a deal. I just think it's always interesting to see what influences stories have taken and from where. It's a little thing I learned in school a while back called intertextuality. It's a big word, but it's rather simple. It's just about how different pieces have taken influences in story structure, tropes, and others from pieces that predate it. Speaking of influences and seeing connections from shows of the past, we see Shinomiya, a rich girl who is socially awkward and has a dead mother and shitty dad. Sound familiar? I don't know if it takes influence from Love is War, and I'm not saying it is. It's probably just a coinkydink. However, I needed a proper segue to talk about her, because Jesus fucking Christ, I hate her guts. She's a bitch. That's it. She has a backstory, but I don't really care. Peeps, listen. In real life and in shows, having a sad backstory, first of all, is not an identity or character trait, but it also doesn't excuse being a jackass. If you are an insufferable, annoying bitch, you are just that. It doesn't matter who died in your family, it doesn't matter how badly you got abused or whatever. Just don't be a jerk. And I hate how people who write manga and anime do this. They make a dickhead character, make them super hot for the halo effect, and then give them a sad backstory as if to use it as an explanation for this inexcusable behavior, or even worse, a justification for it. The first thing she does in the show is be an asshole to Kafka and break his car. Now, she does grow up a bit, but that turns her from an evil psychopathic asshole to a tsundere, which is basically just an asshole, but is technically not evil in universe. And this is even before her actual backstory, which is honestly kind of funny to me. It's so unnatural, it's so stupid. So her rich father always told her to always be perfect, which I don't think is something anyone has said before. For all you skinwalkers out there trying to learn to be human, it's an extremely common sentiment to not be perfect. So this comes off as robotic almost. And did I mention her dead mother? Because of course she is. How they mention this part is also very cheap. The dad literally says, "Be perfect for your late mother," which doesn't sound too bad in English, but feels even weirder in Japanese. It's as if the story is just saying to our face, "Hey guys, she's dead, her mother is dead, hell yeah, take the L, the mom is dead, the mom is dead, did I mention the mom is dead, the mom is dead." And the climax to her story and character growth is literally just power of friendship and you don't need to be perfect. It feels like they just told an AI chatbot to spit out a sad backstory for a rich character and their arc. I just don't like her too much and I don't think she adds much to the story. Even if you are just a horny loser looking for waifus to do horny loser stuff to, I don't think she fulfills that role even. I don't think her character design is meant for gooners. The comically oversized pigtails just aren't it. For me at least, she's just not that hot. So she serves zero purpose. She should love herself now. The writer takes the most typical backstory ever and makes it even worse somehow and makes her a bitch. It's the worst possible combination of flaws. But to be completely fair, this isn't just her. She's just the worst example of this, but there are two other ways this story is similar to Solo Leveling, and it's not a good thing for the first one. The side characters are really forgettable. Some of them are sometimes fun, like the Kansai bowl cut guy. I genuinely don't remember his name even after just having rewatched the show again. But the vast majority of them are just fodder to the battles to make them look more lively. But other than that, I have to say, this story is hype as hell. They get that part down really well, just like Solo Leveling. And if that is the most important thing for you in a story, hell yeah, I recommend the crap out of this. But if you're looking for something deep, you may want to look somewhere else. But yeah, I had a blast watching the show and I'm excited for the second season coming out pretty soon. I'll also probably catch up on the manga and hopefully it goes in a good direction. With the strong fundamentals it already has, I have pretty high expectations of where it will go. Anyways, there you have it. My name is NoahBoahCoah, and I just hit Grandmaster in Overwatch, which is currently about top 150 in the NA region, and why am I saying this? Because screw you, this is my channel, and I wanted to brag about this somewhere because no one I've told so far has cared. And thank you for watching.